Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Before turning it over to our speakers this morning, I wanted to let all the media on the phone know that if you wish to ask a question, please press *1 to enter the queue, *1 to enter the queue to ask a question, and once all the speakers have concluded, we'll have some time for Q&A. And with that, I will turn it over to Minister Rankin. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Murray Rankin, BC's Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. Today, I'm speaking to you from the territory of the Lekwungen people, the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations, right here in the legislature in Victoria. I'm grateful and honored to share this land and to live and work with them. Today is a very significant day for everyone who lives, works, or travels along Highway 16. I am absolutely thrilled to be part of this event. There are several people who will be speaking today, and this is very much a momentous occasion. So I'll introduce them now, and then again, just before they deliver their remarks. First off, Murray Smith, elder and tribal speaker for the Lakwalams hereditary chief. Next, Lisa Bair, BC's Minister of Citizen Services. Then the Honorable Miriam Monsef, Federal Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Development. Next up, the Honorable Carolyn Bennett, Federal Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations. Next, Dean Prevost, the President of Connected Home and Rogers for Business. Then Jennifer Rice, Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. And then Barb Ward-Burkett, who is the chair of the Ministers' Advisory Council on Indigenous Women and the executive director of the Prince George Native Friendship Center. So first off, I now invite Elder Murray Smith to provide a welcome and blessing for this announcement today.
Thank you, Minister Rankin. If you look in the background of behind me here, when I talk about our traditional territory, I got to remember to stare at that camera. That is way in the background there where you see the sun right to the right there. That's the Alaska border. So we're very, very close to our neighbors up there, Metlakatla people. And when I do a welcome on behalf of our tribe. I don't do it on behalf of the village of Lakwalams or Metlakatla. I do it on behalf of the 9 tribes. And on one of the tribes, I belong to what is known as the Gitwalgyots. It's nice to feel a part of. I noticed on here, I look on here and I'm the only Aboriginal or whatever you want to call me on there. I'm a Jimsian. And I'm really very, very proud to be a part of, not call me later, but I'm in the forefront here. And my good friend, Jennifer Rice, I love seeing Jennifer, very good friend as well. What? Simkiget. Lek Giget Siget a Manana. I got a wax it. Elgum Khati Way. Kanhada. Get will gyats. Lech all lamps natty will get it. Edilachan will jog again. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. My tribal name is Elgum Shah. I feasted in 2008 along with the hereditary chief, Yahan Don Wesley. I speak on his behalf, and I speak on behalf of my tribe, the Gitwalgyots, and like my grandfather would welcome, he'd welcome with an open heart. And when he say welcome, he said it from his heart, and he was a very kind man. And in that vein, I do welcome you all here to our traditional unceded territory of the Gitwalgyots. And I ask the Creator to be with us today, and I ask that the words that we use to be words of kindness. And always remember the hungry and the homeless. We always remember our people that are incarcerated, that we don't forget them. I get excited when I heard the number, $1 billion. Anyway, I'm here. I'm happy. I'm very, very proud to be sitting here representing my tribe. As always, Jennifer always gives me a call, and I stand proudly with Jennifer and our government here. So let's be kind today. Let's remember the homeless and the hungry. And God bless you all. And thank you.
Thanks very much, Elder Smith. BC's Ministry of Citizen Services is working hard with stakeholders to deliver cell and internet connectivity throughout the province of British Columbia. In that vein, I now invite the Minister of Citizen Services, the Honorable Lisa Bear, to speak to today's announcement.
Thank you so much, Minister Rankin, and welcome everyone. Today, I'm speaking to you from the territory of the Katzie and the Kwantlen First Nation in my home of Maple Ridge. And I really want to thank Elder Smith for the welcome. Thank you so much, Haishka, and for the others joining me for today's announcement. And especially to all the people who are tuning in to watch this morning. We know that you all have a keen interest in safety improvements because Highway 16 is the key connection between Prince George and the coast. It spans 724 kilometers and passes through dozens of communities, including Vanderhoof, Fraser Lake, Terrace. For so many, it's the only way to access essential services and to get to work and to school. And while the tree-lined highway is quite beautiful, it also has a dark history. The people in this region mourn the loss of their loved ones, the many Indigenous women and girls who have gone missing along the Highway of Tears. And that's a tragedy that has spanned several decades. Many recommendations have been made to make the highway safer for those traveling it. And over the years, a lot of progress has been made, but we know there is more to do. And that is why I'm so happy to announce today that we are fulfilling the recommendation that was made 15 years ago. The province is contributing $2.25 million to a Rogers project that will fill in the remaining gaps of cellular coverage on the highway. By this fall, there will be continuous cellular coverage along the full length of the Highway of Tears, from Prince George to Prince Rupert. And this has been a long time coming, especially for the communities along that highway that are separated by as much as 100 kilometers. No longer will people need to worry about having car trouble and not being able to call for help, or that feeling of being alone, in need of help, and not being able to call anyone. No one should have to experience that. By working together, we're making BC's highways safer and more convenient for the people who use them. Knowing that people will be able to travel Highway 16 without worrying about gaps in coverage is exactly the kind of result we want to see on every community highway and in every rural and Indigenous community. It's going to make a real difference in the many communities along Highway 16. And this announcement builds on the other work our government is doing to make this highway safer for those who depend on it. The BC Bus North, for example, has been extended another year. This is a vital service that provides much needed transportation along Highway 16. And it means that people have access to safe transportation instead of having to walk along the shoulder of the highway or risk hitchhiking. We've invested in highway webcams, in bus shelters, in highway pullouts, so that buses can stop on the side of the road. In 2006, hundreds of people worked together to submit the Highways of Tears Symposium recommendation report. And that report called on us to look into the feasibility of increasing cell phone coverage along the highway. And we made great progress, 70% coverage to date. But that's why today's announcement, bringing cell phone connectivity to 100% of this highway, is so significant. It closes a long chapter of dangerously poor cell service along this highway. It creates a safer, more dependable corridor for people to travel on. And so I'm so pleased to be here along with all of you to make this announcement. Thank you for joining us today. Together, we've achieved something truly historic. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Minister Bear. We're very grateful to have with us today our federal partners with whom we work on so many initiatives. We have a very positive working relationship with Minister Monsef, who I know from my days in Ottawa to be a very strong advocate for her important portfolio. Minister Monsef.
Thank you so much, Minister Rankin. We do miss you in Ottawa, but I appreciate the work you're doing in beautiful BC. Bonjour, Anin, salam alaikum. I join you live from my basement in Peterborough, Ontario, on Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory. Thank you so much, Haishka, to Elder Smith for opening this conversation, this celebration in a good way, and to my colleagues in the government of British Columbia, particularly to you, Minister Bear. In our first conversation together, we both agreed that Highway 16, Highway of Tears, was a top priority for us both. And I'm grateful to you, your team, as well as my own, for moving so quickly on this and responding to the calls that have come for decades to put an end to this difficult chapter. I'd also like to acknowledge my honorable colleague, Carolyn Bennett, who has been a friend and a mentor, and of course, leading the Government of Canada's efforts along the path to reconciliation. She's here today, and I'm grateful for her leadership and mentorship. Access to reliable cell and internet connections create jobs and are vital for the health and safety of Canadians. In addition to enabling telework, online learning, as well as FaceTiming our loved ones in long-term care homes, the Government of Canada's Universal Broadband Fund will improve the safety of women and all Canadians. The National Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry, the first of its kind, amplified what Indigenous communities, families, regional tourism operators, economic development professionals, and emergency responders had been saying for years. Loved ones had been murdered or disappeared along this highway. They were not able to call for help when they needed it the most. Their predators knew that and took advantage of their vulnerability. Such tragedies, as is the case with gender-based violence, are entirely preventable. As we begin the work to cover 252 kilometers of the highway and add 12 cell towers and improve connectivity at 3 highway rest stops, we do so in the memory of those lost and in earnest resolve to end such tragedies. The work will be completed by October of 2022. This improvement in cellular service will offer an important lifeline to the 23 First Nations that border Highway 16, especially Indigenous women traveling along the highway, to let loved ones know that they are safe, that they can look up for directions if they're lost, or call for help in the case of an emergency. Violence toward Indigenous women and girls and 2S LGBTQ2 Canadians is a national tragedy that all governments are working together to address and prevent. Addressing mobile gaps supports the government's commitment to implement the calls from the National Inquiry, which include a call for funding of safe transit, transportation, and infrastructure. This is the first Universal Broadband Fund cell project being funded that will primarily benefit Indigenous communities, but it will not be the last. The total project costs are $11.7 million. The governments of Canada and BC are equal partners, each providing $2.25 million, and Rogers is providing the balance. To date, the Government of Canada has invested over $90 million to connect 25,000 households in BC to high-speed internet. We've invested over $2 billion in 149 infrastructure projects, including clean drinking water. I thank all our partners for your hard work. The Government of Canada will continue to work with all partners to address and prevent gender-based violence and improve rural connectivity.
Thanks so much, Minister Monsef. Now it's my pleasure to introduce my federal counterpart and friend, the Honorable Carolyn Bennett.
Hadi, Amagansluk, Ulakot, Dansi, hello, bonjour. Je tiens à souligner que je vous parle du territoire traditionnel de la Première Nation de Mississaugas de Credit, où nous honorons tous les peuples autochtones qui ont pagayé ces eaux et dont les mocassins ont parcouru ces terres. I too want to thank Elder Murray Smith for starting us in such a good way today on behalf of your people in your beautiful language from your beautiful territory and your words of kindness and happiness. This makes us all happy. So I'm thrilled to be here with my inspiring colleague, Minister Monsef, for this terrific announcement, which is the coming together of your portfolios of violence against women and gender equality, but also rural Canada. So we thank Minister Lisa Bear and you, my friend and tremendous partner in this, Murray Rankin, as well as the First Nation representatives of communities across the province of British Columbia, Dean Provo from Rogers, and you've all worked so hard to make this happen. And I would also like to recognize Regional Chief Terry Teegee and all the Indigenous leaders gathering with us virtually today at this announcement, which has such significance to all of your communities. Today's funding announcement through the Connecting British Columbia program and the Universal Broadband Fund is so critical to fill the gaps in cell coverage along Highway 16, which all of Canada knows as the Highway of Tears. For far too long, sisters, daughters, mothers, family members have suffered because of the isolation and the lack of connection on that stretch of road between Prince George and Prince Rupert. This proposal will fill those remaining gaps in cell service between Smithers and Prince Rupert, bringing cellular coverage to 100% of the entire Highway of Tears. As you've heard, a reliable connection means Indigenous women can reach loved ones or emergency services when they need it most. Whether it's sending a quick text to let a family member know that they've arrived somewhere safely or calling 911 in a threatening situation, a cell signal is an important lifeline when you're on the road, especially in rural and remote parts of your province and our country. Complete service coverage along the highway will improve the safety of those traveling along the road and offer reassurance to everyone traveling on Highway 16. So today, we honor and lift up the advocacy of Barb Ward-Burkett, Sisters in Spirit, Gladys Raddick, Bernie Williams, and so many others. The Walk for Justice has been raising awareness of MMIWG along the Highway of Tears and across Canada since 2008. We are hearing their calls, and today is an important step forward to implement the concrete actions that will end the ongoing national tragedy of MMIWG, Two-Spirit, and LGBTQIA plus peoples. Toya Sutton, Masicho, thank you, merci beaucoup.
Minister Rankin, I'm not sure if others can hear you, but I can't hear what you're saying.
Well, in order to keep us moving, I think maybe I'll introduce our next guest. This is Lisa Bear here, Minister of Citizen Services. We have coming up speaking next, Minister Rankin will follow then Dean Prevost, who is the president of Connected Home for Rogers and Business. Dean, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Minister Bear, and such an honor to be here. Rogers has deep roots in British Columbia. We've been investing here for over 40 years, and we're on the doorstep of even more investments to come. No doubt you've all heard about our plan to bring these great entrepreneurial companies of Rogers and Shaw together which will enable us to invest $6.5 billion to build critically needed 5G networks and connect underserved rural and Indigenous communities and bring added choice to both consumers and to businesses. When the transaction is complete, we'll create up to 3,000 net new jobs in the West and over 1,000 of those here in BC. The ability to make and to invest and make 5G a reality for all Canadians and close the connectivity gap has never, frankly, been more important. We recognize the criticality of our services to Canadians and how important it is to stay connected along highway corridors like we're speaking about today, and frankly, wherever you live and work. The people of BC need dependable connectivity, and these wireless improvements will contribute to safer and easier travel for those who depend on Highway 16, as you've heard here today, an essential route for the people and the economy of Northern BC. On behalf of Rogers, I do want to acknowledge, as many have done this morning, the many women, so many of whom are Indigenous and girls, who've gone missing or been found murdered along this stretch of highway, so tragically referred to as the Highway of Tears. We want to do our part to help connect people who need to make a call to get help or simply need to get access to Wi-Fi at a rest stop. We understand that this is not a nice to have, it is absolutely a must have. Rogers, along with our partner Ericsson, will build 12 new cellular towers to close that 252 kilometer gap, providing 720 kilometers of continuous coverage between Prince Rupert and Prince George. We will also provide coverage to 3 rest stops along Highway 16 at Boulder Creek, Basalt Creek, and Sanderson Point. And work on this infrastructure will begin this spring. And we expect to be finished in the fall, October of 2022. We are very proud to be working with the BC government and the government of Canada to improve connectivity for more British Columbians through projects like this and the many others we've completed in the past year. You may have also seen an announcement about Highway 14, where 7 new towers are being built from along Vancouver Island from Souk to Port Renfrew. And we're looking forward to building on all of this work to bridge that digital divide and strengthen communities throughout Western Canada with our proposed $1 billion fund dedicated to connecting rural, remote, and Indigenous communities. And as part of this fund, Rogers will consult with Indigenous communities and create Indigenous-owned and operated internet service providers in partnership with those communities. And we'd leverage these expanded networks and capabilities to create sustainable local solutions. So thank you again to our partners in the public sector for trusting us to help make British Columbia both connected and safe. Back to you, Minister Bear.
Thank you so much, Dean. I very much appreciate your words. We're very excited to partner and work with you and the Government of Canada as well. I'm very pleased to introduce my dear friend next, Jennifer Rice, Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Minister Bear. My name is Jennifer Rice, and I am the MLA for North Coast, and I'm BC's Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. I'm speaking to you from my home here in Prince Rupert on the territory of the Coast Tsimshian people, including the Metlakatla and Lakwalams First Nations. Today's announcement is a significant one for the communities in my region. As North Coast MLA, I've traveled this highway myself more times than I can count. I traveled it just yesterday to attend a medical appointment. I know how people feel when they realize they are out of cellular range on this highway, especially during winter. And today, I'm reminded of a special friend. Marlene Swift, a strong Indigenous woman, dedicated her life to serving vulnerable people in the North Coast and worked for the RCMP Victim Services into her retirement. She too was a victim at one point. Driving a taxi here in Prince Rupert, she was once held at knife point and kidnapped in her cab. She was taken down Highway 16 past the Port Edward turnoff, where she was brutally raped and physically assaulted. She was left for dead in a ditch in the woods along the side of the Highway of Tears. Naked and bleeding, she crawled through that ditch until she felt far enough away from danger to flag a passing vehicle. Now, she obviously lived to tell her story, but sadly passed away in 2019. Together, Marlene and I advocated for improved safety along the Highway of Tears. And she was thrilled when we were able to add improved community bus transportation along this highway. And she would be so thrilled for today's announcement. just like I'm thrilled to be a part of today's announcement. Not only will this cellular service make the highway safer, it will also improve our emergency response. Connectivity can be so important in a fast-moving situation. It enables responders and communities to send and receive alerts, coordinate resources for a response, and develop a plan and recruit volunteers to help. As a search and rescue volunteer, I know that moving quickly in an emergency can save lives. For people traveling this highway in sub-zero temperatures in the middle of winter, a reliable cell signal can make all the difference. My thanks to each and one of you who have played a part in today's announcement. Your work has helped improve the lives of so many in BC, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much, Jen, for Parliamentary Secretary Rice, for sharing that story of why this is so important to the people in your region. Next, I'm very pleased to introduce Barb Ward-Burkett, who is the chair of the Ministers' Advisory Council on Indigenous Women and Executive Director of the Prince George Native Friendship Center. Thank you for joining us, Barb.
Anse Nia Wahiakoaptasgosagaswian. I introduced myself and said hello. My traditional name is Wahiakoaptasgo, and that translates in my Cree language to Seas Far Woman. I'd like to thank Elder Murray Smith for sharing his medicine with us this morning, the medicine of his language, the medicine of his prayer, and the medicine of bringing us together in a good way. I join you today from the unceded ancestral territory of the Tlaitli T'enneh, better known as in the territory of that they are located in Prince George, under the leadership of Chief Clayton Poutney. I'd like to start out by congratulating the federal and provincial governments, as well as Rogers, for this important announcement, and for being able to shine a light on the issues that have impacted Indigenous women and girls along the Highway of Tears. I speak from a personal point of view as well, in terms of how important this announcement is as a survivor of domestic violence, and being able to come together and have all levels of government that come together in the spirit of reconciliation and decolonizing our relationships that have been ongoing for many, many generations, to come together and to work together in a good way. If we can think of violence towards Indigenous women in this way, every citizen in this province, every citizen in this country has a sacred responsibility to keep Indigenous women and girls and all women safe, healthy, and free from all forms of violence. And I believe that this partnership has brought us together in that way. So I'm really proud to be a part of this. And I'm also thinking as well of the Ministers' Advisory Council on Indigenous Women and the guiding principles of that council and the work that those women do in this province alongside of Minister Rankin now. And those principles of integrity, of safety, of partnerships, of awareness, of healing, and those principles that are community driven. And I'm thinking of those principles today and the council members that do the really important work with our end goal of ending violence towards Indigenous women and girls. So again, congratulations. I'm really proud to be a part of our province and a part of this work that's being done in our province. Say.
Thank you so much, Barb, for sharing your story and your kind words. And I want to echo and share your thoughts on the work being done in our province through Minister Rankin and his ministry alongside you and your team. This is just such an historic announcement today, and to have such a strong team put together to create the space to have this dialogue for reconciliation is truly valuable. So thank you. I want to thank all of our speakers today for sharing your unique perspectives and how important this announcement is to British Columbians, to our women in the North, and to our Indigenous communities. For everyone watching on the line, we're going to pause now for a photo, and then we'll turn it over for question and answers. So if I could get please all the speakers to just take a moment, we will take a photo in the next minute.
Thank you to all our speakers. As a reminder to reporters on the phone, please press *1 to enter the queue. That's *1 to ask a question. You will be limited to one question and one follow-up. Please also remember to take your phone off mute. You will not be audible until your name is called. Please stand by. It looks like we may have no questions today. We do have one person in the queue. So our first question today is going to be Joshua Azizi from CFK. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So I know that it doesn't have the same level of vehicle traffic, but have the provincial and federal governments also been looking into improving and expanding cell service along Highway 37 as well? So from Kitimat to the BC-Yukon border?
Great, thank you for the question, Josh. We have about 6,100 kilometers of highway that need coverage here in British Columbia. So our government is actively working on that. To date, we have invested $180 million in connectivity. And in this latest round of investment, the $90 million in connecting British Columbia, we had a goal of achieving 150 kilometers of cellular coverage within that program. And we are on track to triple that. So this is work that is being done. I don't have the specifics on Highway 37. I can get back to you, Josh, but this is work that we are actively doing, and that we are actively connecting communities and cellular coverage on highways all across the province. I'm not sure if Minister Monsaf would like to weigh in on the federal side.
Thank you, Minister Bear, and Joshua Azizi, thank you for that very important question. To date, our government has invested over $90 million in the beautiful province of BC, and there is another $50 million envelope available as part of the Universal Broadband Fund to specifically improve connectivity along stretches of roads and highway that benefit Indigenous communities. So we're absolutely going to continue to work with our partners as applications come forward. We are assessing them. And as I said earlier, this is the first announcement under this particular funding envelope, but it will not be the last.
Joshua, did you have a follow-up?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That's all the questions we have for today. So this will conclude